Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talkward. I'm Marty Dundix, editor-in-chief of Weekly Humorous Magazine, and this is Talkward, a fun little podcast where professionally funny people come to tell awkward and cringeworthy stories. I'm very excited about today's guest. Just because I've known her as a budding comedy writer in all of the different online comedy places where you get published, and you see people get published more and more, and then you meet them in person, and they're wonderful and hilarious in person as well. And I'm so excited because she has a big new book out that we're going to talk about. So welcome to the show. Kate Herzlin is here today. Hello, Kate. Thank you for coming on Talkward.
Hey, Marty. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Your new book, Jokes to Offend Men, is out now, and it is very funny. And you
Thank
co-wrote this with some of your cohorts in comedy, Allie Kenny, Danielle Crace, and Isabel Yates. And it's so funny because it's such a classic joke book formula. Like,
Yeah.
I am an old guy, and that means I grew up in the 80s. You know, people in the 80s and 90s, and people even in the early 70s were used to reading these truly tasteless jokes, or
Sure.
jokes, or all of these very basic, similar knock knock or dirty jokes, and they were all sort of these, these yellowed paperback things you would get at the bookstore, and as children we would read them and we would snicker in the corner and we would tell each other these funny dirty jokes that we had just learned. And this book is so good because it does that style perfectly. But
Thank
it
you.
but it skewers the exact audience probably of that book back then, who has now gotten old and are the representative of the patriarchy. And this book just takes them down completely, and you do it so well, and you do it so funny. Like, I am the audience that's probably getting skewered here, and this book is so clever and funny, and I enjoy it so much.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. I would say, our target offense aim is definitely going back in time to children in the 80s and making them just feel terrible about themselves in the stacks of bookshelves. I think that's the goal. No, it's
It's great.
thankfully I'd say that you are amongst the many men who truly will not be offended by the book. It's a bit of a it's a bit of a trick. I'd say the title. We say in the intro that we don't actually intend to offend most men, or rather, it's not only men. It's anyone really who's like digging the patriarchy. Those are the people that we're hoping to offend here. So, thankfully, I think, knowing you long enough, that you probably don't dig the patriarchy too much. But this is maybe how I find out that I'm wrong about that.
I don't dig it, and it's very refreshing the way that you guys attack it, because it is in a constructive, hilarious way that can, you deconstruct it and then you mock it, but it's not in a way that is mean or
Right,
would turn
right.
people off. It's an incredibly, people use comedy to get points across in creative ways, and you can use comedy to change people's minds, and you guys do that really well because you don't kind of bang people over the head with it it's not a mean
Right.
humor joke. It doesn't it doesn't even
Yeah.
punch down on the
Right.
patriarchy. Like, you guys are still respectful of not punching down even on the enemy.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. We set up this test for ourselves when we were writing because we in the beginning when we started writing together, we would find that we'd like write a couple of jokes or something, and we'd spend a really long time trying to figure out if they were a good fit or not for the book, and we didn't really have a criteria. And so we realized we kind of need to put something in place for ourselves, like a test to figure out like if a joke would make it into the book, so that we could actually like get through editing these jokes in a constructive way. And one of the parts of the test was like, does the joke actually make a valid point, or is it just being like, men,
Yeah.
awful, right? And if
The
it does that,
worst.
the worst, then we cut it. Because we just felt like that's not really fair or true, and it doesn't really hold up, and it's sort of not valid and kind of lazy. And if we're gonna do a whole book of these, we have to make sure that each one of them can kind of stand on its own. So yeah, we definitely are, I think, nicer to men as a category than one would expect from a book called Jokes to Offend Men.
And also the thing about with writing, just in general writing, but definitely writing humor, is less is more,
Yeah.
right? Like, You can write an article, you could write like a headline joke, you write whatever it is, and then you look at it and you're like, how can I cut this down to half and still make the joke? Like, because if you
Yeah.
can cut it down more, it'll be funnier. Like, it's some sort of you get rid of the dead weight or the extra stuff you don't need, or you trim the fat. And these jokes are so punchy and short. Like, it's an amazing skill to be able to make a skewering point with as few letters as possible. And you guys are able to do that because this book is so like, it moves really fast. Like the jokes are really fast. And the punchlines are really just like a couple of words or less. Why did the
Yeah.
job what did the job candidate ask the male hiring manager? So do you have any questions for me? It's great.
Yes. Yeah, that was I think that's really a labor of the fact that when you put four writers together, you manage to like if one person writes a joke that's super long and it's just like unnecessarily long, i.e. me, because that's what I do. I write jokes with, with too many words. Then it's the rest of the group is there to kind of say, all right, well, how can we let's trim this? Do we need this word? It's really kind of the benefit of collaborating. I would say that if I might fight for a few extra words and be like shot down correctly as I should be, because that I will say, like, of the group, I'm definitely the one who I think is always fighting for an extra word or two, and I'm usually wrong about that. So I think it's definitely a better book than if I had written it on my own, as far as the ability to be for many reasons, but one of which is to be not so verbose all the time.
Here's another favorite one of mine that feels very targeted to me personally. What do what do men and exclamation points have in common? They make you doubt your professionalism, and ultimately you don't need as many as you think. And I'm taking that not as a man, but as a person who overuses exclamation points in emails
All the time.
all
Yes,
the
no, that's
time.
true.
I cut them down, and I still use too many. And I'm like, God, I sound so excited to everybody, but I am excited.
Well, you feel like you've got to perform that excitement, right? Because it's like if you leave a period, it's like, oh God, is she mad at me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like people
yeah.
can read into punctuation so much. And actually, I was just talking to someone about this just because of the way that the keyboards on your telephone are on your iPhone, and you can accidentally hit a question mark when you mean to hit a
Mhm.
period
Mhm.
or
I
exclamation
do that all
point,
the time. Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh my God, I've changed this conversation so drastically by making this a question." They're too close. Like I think that we need to somehow tell the people who make the typewriter positionings that a question mark needs to be way off to the
Way off.
right,
No, you'll
way
text
off.
someone happy birthday, and it's like it's a question. It's like, is it a happy birthday? I don't know. Maybe.
It's
Hard
quite
to
an
say.
existential discussion we're about to have about people getting older, huh? How
Yes.
is that birthday?
What
It
is a
does. What
birthday?
is?
Is it?
Yeah,
Do we? Is that a real marker in time? Has anyone really documented that moment for us around the sun? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
And I was happy enough to get to go to one of your book launch events in
Yes.
Brooklyn, and it was so wonderful.
We loved seeing
And
you there. That was awesome.
you had so many fun. You had so many people there, so many big fans there to get the book. And this is such a nice book, by the way. Like as someone who publishes books, I appreciate book design, and I appreciate a nice hard back and
Yes.
color palette and font choices. And your co-writing person, Isabel, her partner is a font
Yes.
designer.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and I asked her, and I mentioned the font. I completely had forgotten that wonderful fact that he's a
Yes.
font designer and he did the font. I'm like, God, I love these fonts, and now I know
Thank
why.
you. Yeah, we were very thoughtful about that. We were very, and Andrews McNeil was also wonderful to work with in terms of their ability to go back and forth and really kind of think about design. And it wasn't. I think sometimes you hear these like horror stories out in publishing of like, that something is just kind of like that there's just here's the cover, hope you like it kind of moment, and instead it was really kind of collaborative, and we got to and be really thoughtful about the font inside of the book too. We wanted to make things look both beautiful and be accessible, and feel like something that you could just kind of pick up and dive right into. And I think I'm very proud of the book's like feel and how it gifts physically. How it feels physically when you're holding it. It feels kind of like
It's
a
great.
present even when you hold it. Yeah.
And it's a book that you want to read this out loud to people because you feel like people that if you read jokes to people,
Right.
you take sort of an ownership in the fact that I discovered this joke and I am now telling it to you. Like I didn't write this joke, but
That's
I'm going
awesome.
to tell it to you. And that's
Yeah,
the
that's
fun
what we
thing
want.
about
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm going to read this joke to you and you wrote this book and I'm going to be like, "Wait, Kate. Let me tell you this joke. This joke's
Right.
really funny. I got this book
I
right
like
here."
it better in your voice than in my voice. It's really very fun. It's really a cool thing to hear other people tell your jokes. It's very strange.
Why
It's
did the
very
pickup
exciting.
artist why did the pickup artist eat breakfast alone? Because no one cared for his rotten negs.
Right. And negs was a term that I didn't know. Like I learned that from maybe was it Danielle or Isabel? Someone one of the people who like came up with the original idea for the joke. And I was like, what does that word mean? And now I know a whole new thing about the patriarchy that I
Yeah,
didn't
there's
writing
a
this book.
whole thing that I am not. There's a whole world of pickup artistry where it's like you insult people, and
Yep.
that makes them w- like you more.
Yep.
And I'm
Apparently
not
that's the idea.
people. And then there's like people that are peacocking, and they're like
Right.
literally wearing weird things, like I don't know, fedora people, I guess, with feathers in their hats, and that
Just
gets them.
awful. It's the fedora that's the problem, not the patriarchy.
Man, fedoras. Fedoras are the coolest hat that I wish were acceptable to wear, but you cannot wear them. You have to
I
wear
feel like
like
everyone wore them for like 6 months back in like 2006.
I
Like
wish. I've got
it was
so many. I've got so many fedoras, Kate. You don't even want to know.
bring it back. Just decide that it's coming back. You start wearing them out in the world.
I
Tell everyone
tried.
it's back. And be like, no, it's a thing again. And then see if
They're
people
so
believe you.
comfortable and they make you look they're like there's no decorative men's hat wear anymore and your head gets cold. And you don't want to wear a baseball cap or there's like a winter beanie, like a knit hat. It messes
Oh,
up
I
your
like those
hair.
winter beanies. Those look nice though.
But they don't look good with like men, like a nice top coat. Like you want to wear something, but like we're just not in the 40s anymore. And man, they did it up right back then. You could look so cool, and everybody wore them. It was so Mad Men. It was okay if everybody wore them. Like we need to collectively decide that this is cool again, but it's not happening. We just can't get there.
I don't know. I mean, for me, I hear you, and yet, having very curly hair, there is no hat that I can wear that it makes any sense for me to wear ever, because no matter what it is, if I take it off my head, everything's to just be awful.
Yeah.
So, and if I keep it on my head, everything's gonna be awful because as right now in this recording, right, I'm very clearly freshly showered. My hair is very wet, and in like an hour, it's going to go like this, right? It's going to just poof to the side, and if I'm wearing and if I wear a hat, it just goes like horizontal against the frame of the hat. So I think it's best for everybody if no one has to see that.
No one gets to have the hats anymore.
Yeah,
It's
just
okay.
because of me. I'm
We'll
sorry,
get
everyone.
there.
I did that to you.
We'll
Yeah.
get there. Maybe we'll be like in the year, it'll be like 2202, and we're going to be way in the future, and everyone's going to be wearing jumpsuits. Everyone's going to be wearing the same exact jumpsuit, and then there's going to be like one person who's like, you know what this jumpsuit needs?
A top hat.
A top hat, sure.
Top hat. Yep. And a monocle.
I have a top hat like right here. Like I just have like a stack of crazy hats for some reason. Always been like a hat collector. I've never
Yeah.
gone and worn the hats out, but I keep on finding hats, and I'll like take a hat. And I had one of my grandparents. My grandmother she worked in like a vintage store in her later
Mhm.
years, and she'd always kind of just give
Was
me
it a
random
vintage store or
things.
was it just the past? And so it was a store.
That's possible. That's possible. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. It was called the Opportunity Shop, and it was kind of like
Okay.
a secondhand, like a Salvation Army, but like maybe a little bit hipper. So maybe it was more choice items that were used, or they still looked okay. And she'd always bring random things home, and I would get old. I got like the old. My grandfather always wore like cool hats from the 50s, like he had
Mhm.
them because he was an old man,
Because
and
he
I'd
lived in the 50s.
always. And I'd be in there from Pittsburgh, and I would try on all these whole old things, and he would like give it to me. So I have. What do I have here? In my crazy office of
Uh,
garbage. Look at this one, huh? This is like
Good.
I
Yeah,
look like a private eye.
yeah, you look like you've got to crack a story.
Yeah,
And
it's like
you got
either
a
I'm a
lead.
reporter or I'm
Get a
chasing
scoop.
down a lead.
Or both. Could be both.
Oh, so cool, so cool.
Honestly, too cool.
They're
It's
so
not
soft,
great.
so
It
soft.
is it? Is it really soft?
Oh, these old hats. These old hats are
It's a good
so soft.
hat.
They don't make hats like this anymore, though. They don't. They use like a kind of a much heavier felt. This is like a almost like a velvet, like
Hmm.
a velveteen rabbit type hat. I got to work on getting those back soon. I need to write a book that's just all like, "Hey, everybody, hats are cool, right?" And we'll see if
Right.
that can catch on.
So instead of jokes to offend men, it's hats to offend Marty.
Yes.
And it's like hats that are not as cool as the hats that you want. And it's just how modern hats are just made out of terrible material.
Terrible material.
Terrible material. And it's just a collection of that. And
We'll get there.
yeah, I think the only purchaser of the book might be you, but you'll buy 1,000 copies.
I'm going to buy many
So,
copies of this book and I'm
yeah.
going to hand them out. Well, it seems like anybody can spread a bad idea on a podcast
Mhm.
if they make it sound good enough. So maybe we could
Sure.
start that here.
We could start this. I mean,
I
look,
was
it doesn't matter how many people buy a book as long as one person buys 1,000 copies of it, you know? If 5 people buy 1,000 copies each, that's 5,000 copies sold. That's fine. That's
That's
a
a
lot of
lot
books.
of books. It's
Yeah,
a lot of
doesn't matter
books.
how many people you reach. It matters how many books you sell. That's not what I believe, but let's put that out there.
So you wrote this with co-writers. So tell me the process of writing this book with your co-writers. How did the book come to be? Where did the idea come from? How did it get to being? I think it first started out as a McSweeney's article sensation,
Yes.
and then that became the book. So what was the process of writing the article
Yeah,
and then making that article into a book?
absolutely. So back in February 2020, there was that delightful Democratic debate where Elizabeth Warren was asking Michael Bloomberg about the fact that he has all these NDAs, and he was like, "Well, I just have these NDAs because I told some jokes that some women didn't like." And that was awful and obviously not true. And Allie Kelly was sitting in her living room watching that and getting really angry. And she got this idea for like a premise of a humor piece, and had this one joke in mind. And the joke was a man walks into a bar. It's a lone one, so he gets a promotion within his first 6 months on the job. And first of all, that's a great joke.
But
And second of all, yes,
yes,
right? And
good joke.
she sends an email out to a few women comedy writers who she knows. I was actually not on this email, but she sends it to a few people, and she says, I've got this idea for this piece. Is this anything? And then Isabel, who I knew, she knew that I was really into writing topical jokes, and so she brought me into the thread because I'd only met Allie like once before at a Whole Foods, which makes it sound like we were like in the grocery store. But we weren't. It was like a planned meeting at a Whole Foods for some writers. There are tables at
You
Whole
were
Foods.
pushing your carts and you knocked
And
your
I
carts
said,
together and you were like,
"Look
"Oh,
at this
hello."
look at this banana that fell on the ground," and then we laughed about it and walked away. No, yeah, it was like a planned meetup for like a few humor writers in the city, and she had moved to the city recently, and I just thought she was really cool and like probably too cool to want to be my friend. And so then we didn't really talk much after that until years later when we talked every day. But at this point, Isabel brings me into the email thread. I'm like, sure, yeah, let's write this piece. And I was like, it was a very like New York day. Like I was running around like different coffee shops and doing a few different projects for my job at the time. It was a different job than the job I have now. And I was like doing different research. I was also like trying on wedding dresses at a few different places that day too, because I was supposed to get married that year and I had to postpone it till after the pandemic. But well, not after the pandemic. It was mid-pandemic that we got married, but later stage of it.
Yeah, later stage.
Easier stage of it. But anyway, so point being, we write this piece together in a whirlwind day, like over Google Docs, and the four of us kind of come together to write this piece and submit it at like 10 at night, and at like 11 Chris at McSweeney's accepts the piece, and we were all like very thrilled about that. That's really exciting. And getting into McSweeney's is a very hard thing to do, and it's very exciting when you have a topical piece because you're gonna hit something that's like based on the news. And this piece was jokes I've told that my male colleagues didn't like, right? So it's taking the thing that Michael Bloomberg said and turning it on its head and making it like jokes that would make men at the workplace uncomfortable because of their misogyny. And the next day, I was actually with Isabel. We were like co-working together at a hotel. This was a thing that I swear people did for like a few months in early 2020, that you like worked in hotel lobbies. Like hotel lobbies were outfitted with like mini coffee shops inside of them and had
Yeah.
like pastries and lunch. I think this is actually thing that's starting to come back now. Like I only saw an article about this recently. No, I said this happened. I claimed this and everyone forgot about this, but it really did happen because we were working together in this hotel lobby.
You're like, am I
And
having an episode where I
right,
invented this reality? Like,
right,
was
and
I
no one else
there?
remembered this, and it was just my brain. No, it definitely happened because there were other people there, and it wasn't just us. We were working on different projects for like
Everyone's like,
different
no, Kate,
jobs.
you just got escorted from the Ace Hotel. Like, that's what
Right.
happened.
But the Ace Hotel had a great co-working setup. It was a real thing. No, I swear to God. And we were watching the numbers climb that day, like watching it kind of like, oh wow, like 1,000 people read this video. Oh wow, 2,000 people. Oh wow, 3,000 people. Oh wow, 5,000 people. Like I think it got up to 10,000 by the end of the day, and that seemed like a ridiculous number because I think the most that I'd ever had is maybe like 1,500, and so 10,000 seemed just wild. But to watch it continue to grow and to see what people were like sharing with each other online about it, people were really it was hitting a nerve in a really exciting way, and connecting to people, and it seemed like it really meant something to them, to like it was putting something into words that people had felt for a long time. And then within a couple of days it reached 100,000 people, and so we realized that there actually might be something more here in terms of like maybe this could be a bigger project. So that was the process of writing the piece. For the book, when we got together and we said maybe there's something else here, we kind of it sort of became this idea of like, if we go beyond the workplace, like sure we'll include workplace jokes too, but what about other situations in life where you might need to take down the patriarchy, where you might need to take some classic format of a joke and turn it on its head. And so that became, in the home, domestic life, in dating, in the classroom, in the doctor's office, at like when you're voting, sort of all these different pieces of life, sort of private and public, that felt like they could use this idea infused into it. So that's kind of where the premise of the book came from.
And how many jokes did the original article have versus what you had to expand it into as a book?
Yeah, the original article I think was 18 jokes, and the book is about 320, 330. It's
Oof.
about an average of like 30 jokes per chapter or so.
So
But we wrote a lot more that didn't make it
quite
into
a
the book.
lot more jokes than the original article. Like, you guys
Yes,
really, I mean, you wrote 18 jokes. That did really,
right,
really well. And then you got to make a book out of this. And it's like, okay, you wrote 18. Now you got to write a ton more.
right.
And you have to
And
make it seem
yeah,
fresh. And you have to
yeah,
have new categories.
yes. And the way that we kind of made sure that that would work is that we said, when we would have an idea for a chapter, we wrote at least 15 jokes that we thought could stand in the chapter. And if we could come up with 15 solid jokes, we were like, all right, if we can do that, then there's probably enough to really have a chapter here. And if we can't really come up with 15 jokes enough, then it's probably not an idea that can like fulfill the weight of an entire chapter.
Yeah.
And when we did those initial 15, it was, it wasn't just like you would write probably 30 or 40 to get down to 15 that were like solid enough to say like, yes, this can stand. And then many of those didn't end up making it into the book either. But we're the continuous process of cutting and editing and revising and cutting and pitching and cutting more jokes and cutting more jokes. Is probably over 1,000 jokes we wrote.
Well,
That
that sounds like some
didn't include in the book.
sequels ready to go. Are
Well,
any
I
of
would say
those cut jokes going to be usable later?
probably not. I think that many of them are riffs on the same ideas that we didn't make it. Like, if we said we wanted to write a joke about IUDs, right? Then we're probably going to write a lot of jokes about that and then really going to choose the one that we think really kind of encapsulates what we wanted to do. So many of them are cut in favor of not being redundant,
Yeah.
or, making sure that we're really kind of hitting the points home as strongly as possible. More so that than like, and then there were somewhere it was like we were trying to write something about a certain topic and we were just like, you know what? We're maybe not gonna write this well. Like this isn't actually for us to write, but like, someone else out there is gonna write this better than us. So we actually don't have to cover this here in this book. So my feeling about it all is always like, I think we could write more jokes, but I feel like these are the really kind of the cream of the crop of what we did together. And this is saying what we want to say. And now I'm really excited to like see what jokes other people write and how can we kind of elevate. If we can prove that this form is one that can be elevated and has something more to it, I want to see like lots more joke books now. I want to see joke books that are coming from points of view that we haven't gotten to see in joke books in like a, in a mainstream way yet. Would just be because really like seeing the comps out there, there's so few that are. It's mostly still exactly what you read when you were a kid in the stacks. It's like that, and it's like books for kids, and it's like adult sex joke books, and
Yeah.
it's dad joke books, which is fine, but not that's one take. I want to see more.
Yeah.
So hopefully this can prove a little bit that is a marketable thing that people will buy.
I mean, it's wide open. Like you guys hit on a genre of book of joke
Yeah.
writing that just wasn't really done before. So there's a huge audience
Yeah.
who's like, "Wait, this is hilarious! I need to buy a bunch of these," and that's a great gift. I mean, there's so many people that I would give this book to, and I will give this book to.
Thank you.
Like I'm
It's an
thinking,
amazing thing. Yeah, you really expect that like someone that there would be more of this out there by now. And when you're making a book proposal, you have to you put together these lists of comps of books that are sort of similar, that are out there doing a similar thing but not quite the same. Because if it's exactly the same, why would you write the book? And it was pretty hard to find comps. Really, it was just kind of finding other feminist humor books that are fabulous, but not
yeah.
not joke books. It's really kind of an interesting thing.
I think this was a great category. It's jokes to offend men at work who don't actually do their own work.
Sure.
And that's so, I mean, it's so true. Like there's so many people. And it's the type of people that, and I've encountered these people before, and I was actually just talking to someone about a person like this. And I said, this person was the person in school who was in the group project and didn't do any work in the group project.
Yeah,
they
I did
always
all the work in every group project.
You did all the work. So
All the work, every work.
I would want to be in your group, Kate, because you would be
Mhm.
the one that would make sure that we didn't fail, and I would contribute, but there would always be somebody who just didn't do anything.
Nothing.
And they somehow got their name first on whatever, and then somehow also probably took credit for the entire thing.
Yep.
And that's why this is a great section, and I love it. And this is going to resonate with a lot of people because, I mean, this is something that happens at every office.
Thank
But
you. Yeah.
why are men
yeah.
at my job like parrots? Because they repeat everything I say poorly.
Poorly. Yep. Yeah, that chapter was an interesting one because it's in a way it's obviously it's the chapter that's most similar to the original piece because it's the workplace. The original piece was the workplace, but we didn't want it to just feel like just take the original piece and double it, or take the original piece and just kind of like extend it. So what you'll find in there also is a lot of jokes, like many are at the office, but there's also many in other kinds of workplaces, because we wanted to feel like we could expand out a bit into other kinds of jobs that we didn't really get to tackle in the original piece. Because otherwise it felt like it would just be kind of like, like, sure, it's the same as the piece and we'll open with this, that's fine. But,
Yeah.
or the same idea as the piece. But I like that we were able to go a bit outside of the office there too, and really kind of like look at other jobs, other kinds of workplaces and other approaches to what it means to work, and problems at work. Like there are jokes about parental leave in there, and like the discrimination in terms of like pregnancy in the workplace. Like there's that joke that's like I'm gonna botch this. Maybe you can find it in the book.
I like the one that said there's some very specific categories here, but I think they're very the one about jokes to offend men whose great grandfather founded this school.
Sure.
So
Yes,
it's
which
all
initially,
about sort of
yeah, was
like generational wealth and
an
generational,
education.
yeah,
Yeah,
lineage.
yeah, yeah. Because that one we were initially going to make it. We were thinking about universities, but then we found a lot of jokes there, a lot of ideas for the classroom for when you're younger too, and the way that when you're in like you know from very young age up to high school, the way that misogyny plays out in classroom, and so that felt a bit more expansive than just like college or universities. Um, but yeah, no, it's I also really love the subheads of each chapter. I think
Yeah,
that
they're very
you know
funny.
yeah, I think one of my favorite ones is for the medical chapter.
Jokes to offend men who have a medical degree in dismissing your pain. You'll laugh so hard it hurts, and then a doctor will say it doesn't.
Love that. I
So
love
good.
that subhead. It's I'm so proud of
So
that
good.
subhead.
So
And then the doctor
funny.
will say it doesn't. It's just so pithy and true.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. What do you call a female doctor?
A
A
doctor.
doctor.
That one, to your point about additional words and like, keeping it short, that was originally a doctor, you sexist. Like, like really kind of driving the point home. And then our editor was like, I think you could just say a doctor. I don't think that you need you sexist. I think the point is driven home. And I think it's a much stronger joke for that cut. I think that was a joke that I pitched again in the world of Kate Herzlin is far too verbose. Like I think that was an edit of me. That was a very good edit of me.
And because of that, that's why this works so well as a joke book. Is those old joke books that you're emulating? They were really edited down to almost like
Hmm.
nothing. Like they're so fast. Like each joke
Yeah,
is so punchy and short, and like the
right.
punchlines are just like one line, maybe 2 words. Bump bump done. Next joke. Next joke. Next joke. And the thing about a joke book like that and like this, and why it works so well is there's something that it's called comedic density, is what I always
Hmm.
have heard it called, and it's where there's just like this overwhelming amount of humor, and it just keeps on coming, and
Yeah,
it's like not one little thing is so precious that it has to stand on its own. Like there's just
right.
tons of it, like a waterfall of just hilarity, and that's
And what
why
I
those
try to
jokes
do,
work.
yeah, no, it's true. And I think what's nice about it too is that you almost recognize the setup, right? Like that, like what do you call a female doctor? Feels like a setup from one of those books.
Yeah,
And the part of what I think makes the joke work so well is that a joke has to be a surprise, right? Like the punchline has to be something that you don't see coming, and that's part of why it's funny. And so if your brain is going to just kind of automatically go to whatever the like awful thing was before as the punchline, then it's the surprise is like, uh-oh, like this is your brain is kind of messed up now because of
yeah.
the society. Like you're kind of almost making fun of the way that you are trained to think. And that's kind of the turn there, the surprise that I just think is I'm really proud of. I think that we pulled it off. We like we
You
we
did.
did the trick of that. Yeah, and that each show kind of, if nothing if nothing else in terms of the surprise element being that your brain is tricked into thinking that it's going to be something else than it is, and it really kind of exposes the way that we all just kind of think about things because of this fabulous society that we live in.
Yeah, it's almost like a Rorschach test, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're reading the book and you're like, "Oh, the punchline's this
right,
horrible, misogynistic or
right.
racist thing." Oh, it's not. Oh, I'm horrible and misogynistic and
Exactly.
racist. Damn
That's the
it.
journey.
Damn it. That was so fast and it
Right.
was done so succinctly. Damn it.
Yeah, it's like a roast of your brain every time.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is. A delightful
yeah.
roast of your brain
That
in a
I
beautiful
wonder.
package that is delightful
Thank
to
you.
own and to give.
In the workplace
Still
chapter,
time to
there's
buy
that.
one now, people. If
There
you
is
want to get
still
something,
time.
we have a whole
Yes.
week of Hanukkah gifts and
If
of
you got your work
Christmas.
holiday parties and you've got like a white elephant and you got to offend someone at work,
Oh yeah, this would
then
be a
like
great
the
office
whole,
gift.
right? Yeah, it's a great office gift. It's a great stocking stuffer, is
This
what
might
I'm
get
told.
you
I don't
this
know. I've
this
never.
might get you a meeting with HR. I don't know if
Or
people are being
or you give it to
sensitive.
HR so that they can learn about it.
That would be a
Got to
great
teach
gift for
HR.
HR.
Yep. The HR holiday gift is jokes to offend men. Then they can learn something about how to offend men in the workplace.
With the shipping on the Amazon, people could probably buy this still and get it in time for Christmas. You can
Oh
probably
yeah,
get
for
something like
sure.
this in 2 days. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you can go to if you don't want it to be shipped, go in person to your local bookstore.
Go to your local
And,
bookstore.
you know, yeah, they probably have it. And if they don't, you should tell them they should have it, and then they'll order a bunch, and that's great.
And you guys have been doing a lot of fun stuff. You've
We
been
have.
traveling all over the place promoting this book. So where have you gone? I think you were in the Midwest. Were you in
Yeah,
Chicago?
so we went to Chicago. So our launch was in Brooklyn at Books Are Magic, Wildly Screwing. And then our next event was in Chicago at the Bookseller. And then we did an event at Trident Bookstore in Boston. And we did a virtual event with a novel idea in Philly. And our next event is going to be on January 14th with Atticus Bookstore in New Haven. And every store has just been really, really fabulous to work with. I mean, independent bookstores are the best things. I mean, like if I did I write a book just so that I could go have a reason to go to independent bookstores? Maybe. I don't know. But they're really just a wonderful part of like this world that we live in. It's just I really can't say enough about like how fabulously and warmly and thoughtfully we've been treated at these different stores for these different events, and what great collaborators they've been. It's really been like a big highlight of this whole process.
It's looked like a lot of fun because they've done a lot of
It's been a lot of
great.
fun.
They did a great job of promoting photos and videos of the events
Yeah,
all over the place. So I think I got to see some bits and pieces of
yeah,
Chicago, and I think you guys were up in Boston
yeah. That was Trident.
promoting.
Yeah, yeah, and it was great. What we've done for most of the events is we've partnered with other writers as well on like so we've done a mix of reading jokes from the book and then also having like humor pieces or jokes told by other women and non-binary comedians, and it's been really cool to get to know writers in other cities and get to like feature their work. And the event in Trident was the one that I kind of spearheaded the most, as far as like bringing together different comedians. That's the Boston event, and really was just like it was a blast. They're so funny, like some really great comedians there. Like and now I just like know these comedians who I follow now in these different cities who I would love to just promote. They're really cool people.
That's wonderful, and this is so nice, and I'm so happy that you got this book out. So successful and incredible, Kate
Thank
Herzling
you.
here,
That's
and you're
neat.
well. I always have my favorite comedy writers, Kate, because it's the comedy writers that came to events that I had that were incredibly like lowly attended.
No,
It,
your events are awesome.
and if like a writer comes to an event that's like maybe I didn't promote it enough, or maybe not people, but then like I see Kate there, or I see Isabel there, or I see like
Right.
Sarah Garfinkel there. It's like that sticks with a person. Like if you have an event and people come, even people come to your book events or whatever. It's like you remember the people that show up
Yes. Yeah.
forever. Like
You
there's always
do.
people that I will remember. It's like that person came to my one event like many years ago, and I will always like them more because they did
Well,
that one thing.
I mean, you are that to us, I mean,
Oh,
it's both you came to the launch, but, you are someone who has always shown up and is always around and like, making connections in the community. I mean, I don't think that I've ever been at an event with you where you didn't introduce me to at least like three other wonderful people, and it's not just because you like, want to put people together to know each other. It feels like it really matters to you, like to build these connections in the community and to really kind of foster it. And I think we kept saying in the process, we were like, when are we going to get to see Marty? I hope we get to see Marty soon. Like, we were like writing together remotely over Google Docs, and and it was really a big thing that I think made us all feel connected when we were all, in our homes and not able to go out with COVID. And, to be able to work on this book together and to think about the time when we'd eventually hopefully be able to share this with people in person. You're absolutely one of the main people that we were like, and Marty, we're going to get to see Marty and
that's
share it with
right. That's
him.
right. And
Yeah.
I'm so excited that you did finish this so you could share it with everybody. And it's so
Again, we just
funny.
wanted to go to bookstores and also get to hang out with you. And that's it. That's the only reason.
Absolutely. Mission
Yeah.
accomplished. You
Yep.
definitely did that. Well, thank you so much for talking. I know you got to run, but have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks,
Kate
Marty.
Herzling, can people follow you? Is it at Kate Herzling? on the
Yeah.
Twitters and the Instagrams?
So at Kate Herzlin, just to, to correct the pronunciation a little.
Herzlin.
Just to
Sorry,
rub you a
Herzling.
little.
I've
It's
been calling you
okay.
Kate Herzling forever.
I know.
But
This is
I
this
spell
moment
it
of truth.
right. I always spell it right, but I always
Well,
say I slur the last part of your name
yes.
together.
Well, and to tell a quick, I know that the one of the things that we like to do here on this podcast, right, is to tell an embarrassing story.
Yes.
Yes, and to tell one actually very connected to what just happened is that when I was in college, I had a job where I had to I delivered cash from one building to another building at my university. There were other parts of the job, but that was one of the parts of the job. It was like the writer's house to the financial building. I had to deliver like
Mm-hmm.
petty cash back and forth. And once a week, I would see this woman in the financial building and I'd bring her the money. And the first week that I went, she called me Allie. And I just didn't correct her. And so every week, so we got to know each other like kind of well because I saw her every single week. She would always call me Allie, and I would just continued on answering to this name. And literally a year later, like it was like the end of the school year, and my boss was writing an email to this woman and was like, I'm gonna be sending Kate over with the cash today. And she's like, "Who's Kate?" And so she found out that I was not Allie, and she confronted me. She was like, "Why didn't you tell me the first time?" And I was like, "Well, the first time it was just I just couldn't do it, and then it just continued. I don't know what to tell you." And it was quite embarrassing. And thankfully, I don't think I've heard you say my last name enough out loud for it to have gone on that long, but maybe. And I just similarly have not been
No,
correcting you for a long time.
I know how to write it, and
Yes.
then I just know you don't say people's names out loud very often, especially
Yes.
people's last names. Like there's
Yes.
people I don't think that have ever said my last name, and that's fine. And then they probably say they're like, "What is your last name?" I'm like, "Don't even bother. It's fine.
Well,
Don't
I
try."
was just at a holiday party with my like one of my closest friends from college, and she's been with this guy for like 7 years, I want to say, and they got married recently. And I was referring to him out loud, and he was there, and I know his name, but I've never said his last name out loud, and I got really nervous, and it made it sound like I didn't. I just said his first name, and it sounded like I didn't know his last name. Like it sounded like they've been together for 7 years, and I was just like referring to her and then Jim. And then it was
Yeah.
like, no, but what do you know his last? No, I know his last name, but I'm just afraid I'm gonna say it wrong. And it was close enough. Like he wasn't
Close enough's fine, especially if it's like a
yeah.
long, complicated, like Constantinopolis or something like that, where you're just like,
No,
that's a lot of O's.
it's actually a pretty short name. I just it's Bowserman, and I wasn't sure if it was Bowserman or Balserman or Bossman. Now he's gonna hear this. No, now I'm just now Jim Bowserman. This is a
It's
Jim
fine.
Bowserman. Jim Balserman. Jim, what is it? I don't know. But so
It's
that
tough.
was my concern.
I had a speech impediment growing up, and I would say my own name incorrectly. I couldn't say my R's. I couldn't. I would add a stutter. Like I was a mess. And I would
Hmm.
say, I said my name. I think it was Modi,
Oh,
something like
Modi.
that when I was a kid.
That's a
And
good name, though. I would call you if you were like, my name is Modi. I'd be like, hey,
so the
Modi.
problem, and I'd be like, no, my name is Modi, not Modi, Modi. And I would get so frustrated, and I couldn't talk. And my basketball coach called me Modi the entire season, and it's like little league basketball. And my best friend Frank White was on the team with me, and I was like, "Why don't you tell him my name is Marty? I keep saying I keep saying it wrong." He's like, "I could," but it's just so funny. And this is like, we're like 7,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's like, "This is too funny." And I think my parents are like, "Why is he calling you Modi at the game?" I'm like, "I don't know. He doesn't know my name." It's like, isn't it
Feels like
written
people,
down on the roster?
that almost feels like people were pretty terrible.
They were.
I feel like
They were too busy reading these terrible joke books that we were
yeah,
reading back in the
they were.
day.
Yeah.
Totally insensitive
They
and
needed
mean.
this book instead, and then they would learn to be
Exactly.
better people. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So they can follow you on the Instagram and the
Yes.
Twitters,
That's
and
how
they
we got
should
here. It
go
was
to.
yeah, so it's at Kate Herzlin on Twitter, at Kate Herzlin on Instagram.
And
I
then it's
guess Facebook is the thing.
jokes2offendmen.com, I think
Yes,
is the website.
jokes2offendmen.com is our website. And you can buy Jokes to Offend Men. Look at that. You can buy it all the various places where books are sold. It is distributed by Simon & Schuster. So if you go on the Simon & Schuster page for it, you can see lots of places where you can buy it. I would definitely encourage folks to buy it from their independent bookstores. and support those this holiday season. They're just doing a fabulous job, and we want to. How many times have we used the word fabulous today? I haven't. Had enough
Fabulous.
coffee, and that's my go-to word, but it's a great word. But yeah.
Oh, and also,
fabulous bookstores.
before we go, who is the illustrator? Because these jokes are illustrated in the book, and they look great. So who is the artist that you used to do the illustrations of the book?
Yes, our artist. I want to also make sure I include her handle. So let me pull that up as well. So Millie Von Platten is our artist, and let me see if I can find her on Instagram, because she is just phenomenal. What is her
Very
handle?
fun
What is her
stuff.
handle?
Very fun, like pen and ink.
Yeah, and she does some great things for the New Yorker. She was just a delight to work with. Instagram, Millie Von Platten. Yeah, that is her Instagram too.
That's
So
Millie
do follow
Von
her,
Platten.
Millie Von
Yeah.
Platten. That's MILLIEVONPLATEN.
Very
She's
fun.
hilarious and was so great to work with, and what a great collaborator. I just was. We were just blown away. I mean, we gave her like a few jokes per chapter to choose from, and gave her the different things to read, and she just ran with it and it really, I think, elevated so much to get to work with her on the project. And yeah, big shout out to her. Everyone should follow her. Really excellent artist in person.
What do daughters and business cards have in common? Men are expected to give them away at events.
Right.
Oh, this book is so good.
Thank
Again,
you.
everyone should go get this. It's Jokes to Offend Men, and it is out now. And thank you so much, Kate, for coming on
Thank you so
Talkward
much for
today.
having me,
It's
Marty.
been
Thanks for
so
being awesome.
marvelous talking to you. Yes.
It's been the best. You're great, and I'm so grateful to know you, and I'm so glad that you are a comedy shepherd in this community. We are so lucky to have you.
That's so nice of you to say. I'm going to put
That's
that on
true.
I'm going to make that my ringtone now, and I'm just going to hear
You
it every
should.
time my phone rings. It's just going to say how wonderful I am.
And you can, because this is recorded. So
That's right.
Just put this entire podcast as your ringtone.
I will.
Yeah,
It'll
let
be
your phone ring for 47 minutes.
every morning. It'll be like my alarm waking up. All
Good
right.
plan.
Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Talkward. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Kay. This
Bye.
was so wonderful.